Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very exciting segment today. Well, let's start off with that big outage that happened this morning. Have you all heard about that?
Facebook, WhatsApp and Instagram have been hit by a massive outage affecting billions of users. The world's most popular social media and messaging services went down around the globe. Services have started to come back online now. And Doug Midori is the Director of the Internet Analysis for Kentic, and he joins us now from the US state of New Hampshire. Doug Midori, welcome. So you keep an eye on this all the time. Just how big is this?
This was epic. This was huge. The last time, I can't think of the last time there was a company of this scale of Facebook, Google, Amazon, to be totally down globally for, it was upwards of 6 hours today. All services, all their subsidiaries, everything was offline. That is very unusual.
So how does this happen to the biggest tech company with all the expertise that it has?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be asking themselves this question, including the staff at Facebook. So I think, from a technical standpoint, what happened was their DNS services went offline, so they were basically unable to convert like Facebook.com into an IP address or any of their any web property that they own. They were unable to do that DNS resolution, and if they're unable to do that, there's just not much that'll work. Whether that's from your phone or a computer, everything's offline. It sounds like this also took out internal communications systems, some of their internal physical security also depended on this service, and these are factors that extended the duration of this outage to make it so long.
So have the DNS services previously gone offline, and how does this happen?
Yeah, DNS is often, for anyone who works in IT, DNS is often a source of problems for communication, but this scale is pretty unusual. Yeah, there other major internet firms have had outages relating to DNS, but they're often able to restore those in under an hour. And I think people like me who look at that and say, well, this is actually the system working well. There is no error-free internet. Everyone experiences an outage now and then. The question is, how fast can you recover and limit the damage from the outage? In this case, unfortunately, it took Facebook a long time to get their services back up.
And are you aware of Facebook previously having problems with DNS services?
I can't recall a time that they've had DNS in particular problems, but Instagram had a couple of outages earlier this year. It's not uncommon that even for large internet firms like these to experience an outage from time to time, but the duration of this...
Come forward and get their vaccine. You can walk in without an appointment to any one of our many clinics throughout the state. Just go online and find your closest one and turn up there. If you have a booking, you can turn up early. Don't wait till that booking. If it's in late October, November, come forward now and get your first dose. For your second dose, you need to have 3 weeks between the first and second dose of Pfizer, 4 weeks for Moderna, and 12 weeks for AstraZeneca. It's really important to come forward and get that second dose because we know you need a second dose to reduce your risk. There is some reduction in risk with the first dose, but most reduction occurs after the second dose. So don't wait until we have an outbreak. As we see every day, we're seeing cases that due to the good work of Queenslanders we're managing to get on top of, but that can't last. We are going to get more and more cases of the virus coming into Queensland. There are so many different ways it can get in. The best way to prevent any significant outbreak or any significant amount of infection and disease is to get vaccinated. We have plenty of supplies of vaccines, so please, anyone who is 12 years of age or older, come forward and get vaccinated. Thank you.
So some really great figures, Queensland. When you look at our testing, our checking in and our vaccinating, We've had over 112,000 people get tested since last Monday, and we encourage people to keep coming forward and getting tested if you have any symptoms whatsoever, and of course checking the website for any new exposure sites. When it comes to our check-in app, we have had over 500 million check-ins on the Queensland check-in app, 514 million check-ins. So well done, Queenslanders, for making sure that you are checking in wherever you go, which means it makes the job of our contact tracers far easier, and it means we can find the virus in the community by contacting people much quicker. And of course our vaccination rate, it's fantastic to know that over 2 million Queenslanders are now fully vaccinated. But we want to see everyone vaccinated who is eligible. So come out today to any one of our community hubs that are all walk-ins and get vaccinated, or make a booking with your GP, or go to your community pharmacy. There are so many options now, both the vaccines and where to get the vaccination. There is no excuse, no reason to be delaying getting vaccinated. Now, I just want to briefly touch on the commentary from the Commonwealth. We've heard the Prime Minister particularly focusing on Queensland when it comes to the request for the Commonwealth to be supporting state and territory health systems and the primary and allied healthcare system. Interestingly, and I remind the Prime Minister, that every single state and territory health minister signed this document. But not just one document, there's actually 3 letters sent to the Commonwealth Health Minister, and every single state and territory health minister has signed that. So this is a national conversation. It's not a fight between the Commonwealth and Queensland. It is every single state and territory saying that our health system was under extensive pressure and demand prior to COVID that required a rethink in the funding model going forward. And with COVID now, we need to see more effort, more contribution from the Commonwealth, partnering with us 50-50, which is only fair considering the responsibility of the Commonwealth in relation to our national health system as well. So I do remind the Commonwealth, this isn't just about Queensland and the federal government. This is about every single state and territory saying we need to work together to make sure that our health system is properly funded going forward.
Thank you, Premier. So just a reminder that our borders remain in place. So 7,623 vehicles were intercepted yesterday. We had to turn around 105 and 5 persons were placed into quarantine. In addition, we issued 5 on-the-spot fines. That's disappointing, including a heavy vehicle driver that was attempting to smuggle a female person into the state and was discovered by police. Then drugs were discovered on that truck driver in that truck. That person will appear in court and they were refused entry into the state, and both were fined for coming across the border in an unlawful manner. So, look, the reminder is there for everyone coming into our state that we will continue to check at the borders and make sure people are complying with the directions as they stand at the moment. At our air borders domestically, we saw 147 persons into quarantine and 12 were refused entry, so people are still trying to get into the state when they shouldn't. So please make sure you have the appropriate passes. Masks, 30 were handed out yesterday. There was 1 person fined at Roma Street Parklands for not wearing masks. The reminder there is, again, we are in increased restrictions, particularly in Brisbane and areas in the southeast and Townsville. Make sure you do carry your masks and wear them when you should, and avoid having to get a $204 fine. And finally, we will be thorough. A person who was refused entry at the Gold Coast borders during the day and fined and turned around, persisted and was then later located at Coolum and was arrested and will be placed before the court for their efforts as well. So we'll continue to police the directions as they stand, and we need the community to work with us. Thank you. Sure.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the update from Queensland Government for what's happening right now. Right now, let's go back to that report on the Facebook outage.
And are you aware of Facebook previously having problems with DNS services?
I can't recall a time that they've had DNS in particular problems, but Instagram had a couple of outages earlier this year. It's not uncommon that even for large internet firms like these to experience an outage from time to time. But the duration of this one to be a total global outage for 6 hours is, there's nothing like it.
Do you believe there's any chance this could have been an outside actor, or is it confirmed that this is just a problem within the system?
I'm not sure we have the explanation confirmed just yet. And in most of the cases in the last couple of years where there's been a large internet firm that's experienced an outage, it's been the result of an internal network configuration push, deployment of insufficiently tested code that when it went to production, it took the system down, they recognized it, they backed it out, and brought things back online. So I think my default position would be to assume that was something akin to that took place today. Right, there's other scenarios, an outsider hacked them, or there's a disgruntled insider that pulled off some sort of outage. I don't have anything to back that up, and I wouldn't, until we hear something solid, I would assume this is an internal mistake.
And does it appear to be the case that everything's back online now or not?
Yeah, so it's just minutes ago, things started to come back online. It took a little while. This is a large network. The global footprint of Facebook is pretty big. So to get all the traffic flowing back up, all the DNS queries answered so that they can communicate, there's some lag time before they're back to 100%, but it looks like everything's back up now.
Yeah. And what kind of disruption does this cause, taking into account the way so many people have come to rely on these platforms to do so many things?
Yeah, I would classify this as very disruptive. I think to a lot of people, the internet and Facebook are just one and the same. And so.
Yeah, thanks, Lydia. And as we know, these are pressures that are being felt right around the country. That's why the health ministers wrote that letter to the Federal Health Minister. These are extraordinary times and the pressures are not unique, and other premiers also raise these issues at National Cabinet.
Robbie, we just heard from the Health Minister that our hospitals were under pressure prior to COVID. Why has it taken 18 months to raise this issue?
No, we've been raising it. Other premiers have been raising it as well. So this is nothing new. This is in the height of this pandemic. It has been extraordinary to see the increased presentations, especially when we had that initial lockdown period.
Yeah. Amanda said that these has been a problem for years and years and years. How come we haven't seen a big increase in bed capacity?
Well, if you've read the letter, Lydia, the letter clearly states that at the moment too, there's 600 people from memory that have people with complex disabilities. That now Professor Murphy from the federal level said that they're actually looking at working with the states to help transition them into like aged care facilities, and that would help free up some bed capacity, which would be great for Queenslanders and great across the nation. And it's great to see the spirit of cooperation when it comes to dealing with these issues. So there should be more of it.
The Prime Minister accused you of this extensive trying to extort money and shut down politics.
I don't believe that, no, not at all. Look, what we do know is that we're dealing with a global pandemic. We want to make sure that, that our hospitals are getting ready. And we've seen, you only have to see what's happening in New South Wales and Victoria, and I think, Tim, we talked about this the other day, the huge pressure that the staff are going to be under, and they're constantly under this pressure. So, as Dr. Young said the other day as well, working very consistently across the state, getting everything ready, because when we do have a large outbreak of Delta in this state, there's going to be added pressure. And that's not just happening in Australia, it's happening across the globe. These are unprecedented times.
So categorically, do you think our hospitals are ready?
Categorically?
Yeah.
I think we have all of the processes in place. People are working incredibly hard around the clock. But this is the golden moment in time to get vaccinated. This is what we need. The more people who get vaccinated, it's largely the pandemic of the unvaccinated at the moment. So what we are seeing, the evidence is in New South Wales and Victoria, the people who are ending up in ICU are largely those people who aren't vaccinated. So we need to get as many people in Queensland vaccinated as possible, and that will then ease the pressure on the hospitals when the outbreak does come.
But do you think they're actually ready?
They're doing everything they can. Everything they can. Well, I think that's a bit of a hypothetical question, because they haven't had to deal with a Delta outbreak like New South Wales and Victoria before. So yes, they're getting prepared. They're getting prepared as much as possible. We're very fortunate to have Dr. Young, who has been preparing Queensland for this pandemic in the eventuality of a pandemic. So they're doing all the preparations, but this is a national issue. It's a global issue. We are in a pandemic. Sorry?
When will Queensland release the plan?
Queensland's working with the Commonwealth, so the Commonwealth is actually working on a national plan looking at the capacity issues, and that's coming back into National Cabinet.
Do you think the borders will be open by Christmas?
That's another hypothetical question, and what we want to do is get as many Queenslanders, I hope so, we've got to have as many Queenslanders as possible vaccinated, but we're not going to do it unless it's safe to do so. So, you know, we are not going to put Queenslanders at risk until we get to those vaccination levels. So our target is to get that 80% fully vaccinated across Queensland, but we would like to see more people vaccinated because that will ease the pressure on the hospital system.
Will the borders open at that 80%?
Not necessarily. It depends on the situation of the day. It depends on what's happening in New South Wales and Victoria. So we are watching all of those issues very closely. Everyone has those targets of getting the 80% double vaccinated, and that is exactly what we are working on. At the moment, we're getting close to 70% first dose by the end of this week, but we want to see in Queensland as many people as possible. Now, in ACT, from memory, around 93%. 93% in the ACT have now had their first dose. So it is possible to drive up those vaccination rates, but it's going to mean a huge effort on Queenslanders' part to go out and get vaccinated. And I love people sending me their photos of getting vaccinated, and like I said the other day as well, people were coming up to me saying that they're vaccinated.
This is why the question of hospitals is so important, because I know last week you said you won't open up until the hospitals are ready.
I said we need to look across the We need to look at making sure that our hospitals are ready, that the plan's there, and that is exactly what the National Cabinet is looking at. The capacity right across the nation. That's great work that's happening there. Professor Murphy's sort of been helping to drive that work. And then we need to look at the plan for the children, and we need to get our vaccination rates. So, you know, I think it'd be negligent if I wasn't looking at all of those issues. Like, we all have to look at those issues so we can be as well prepared as possible. And, you know, we don't want to see a massive Delta outbreak here. We have got this moment in time to get vaccinated, everyone. So please go and get vaccinated.
I understand the concerns in the community, especially the people whose livelihoods depend on open borders, when you can't bring this up to say, I guess the hospitals are ready.
Well, I think what we can say is that in lockdown, businesses aren't operating. That's what we can say. That's very clear evidence. We have lockdowns in Victoria, lockdowns in New South Wales when the Delta virus gets out of control. That's fact. So what we are trying to do is minimise that impact by getting as many people vaccinated now as possible. So, you know, we're fighting to protect our freedoms at the moment, and they're fighting to regain their freedoms.
Premier, the government.
I'll just do a couple more because I have another announcement.
Premier, the government appropriate for cabinet ministers taking a day off in the middle of the week to attend the federal Labor election.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a live telecast from the Queensland Parliament House, and this
No, they're not. They're not taking
Premier
the day
is
off.
taking questions, but she has an announcement to make very soon.
Some months ago for 65 new beds to ease the pressure on hospitals.
Sorry.
The $100 million package the government
Yeah, I'll
announced.
get a vet to talk about that.
But have those
Yep.
65 beds come online yet?
Oh, you'll have to ask the Health Minister. Yep. So, any questions for the Health Minister? Then I've got another announcement. Yep.
On New South Wales, if we could, that would be Premier Dom Perrottet. Have you spoken to Gladys Berejiklian, and are you looking forward to working with?
Look, I'm waiting to see I heard there's some commentary. Look, I'm going to wait till that's all fully endorsed and announced. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll reach out to him, and I made comments about Gladys. Okay.
Have you spoken to her?
Well, I haven't had the opportunity. Okay.
Daniel, with the vaccination rates, if at the moment it has to be the national at 80%, the states at 80% average, what happens when there's still pockets of the community that have very low?
So, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to
We're looking
Australian
at that.
Indian
So I
Radio
get
and the
those-
live
I look at
telecast
some
coming from
data each
Queensland
every
Parliament.
week, and I look at that, and we're looking at some of those pockets, and we need to make sure that we do bring those vaccination rates up across the state. So we're doing some extra planning on that. Those text messages going out to people is one way to get people to think about, hang on a minute, I do need to get vaccinated. Yep. Okay. Now I need to make another announcement, so I need to get Yvette to answer this question. Okay, because then I've got cabinet. So thanks.
So which question are we? Oh, the 100 million, sure. So yes, those beds have come online, but remember that was funding that we announced around April, May this year, and we also put in some
Yvette data with that report, but we'll wait and see if as soon as the Premier comes back, she's got an announcement to make before she goes to Cabinet.
At the end of the year. But our demand is significant, and this is what every health minister is saying, that the demand through population growth, through ageing population, increase in complex illnesses, preventable illnesses, less GPs, less bulk billing GPs, less access to allied health, not getting into an aged care nursing home, not getting disability support. Every single one of those things impact on the public health system. And so that's why we're all working together to find solutions on all of those, because it's not simply about the public health system.
Are you concerned about there's frontline Queensland health workers who are locked out and can't get back in the state? Is that what you're talking?
Look, I've heard some figures of, I think, a paramedic wanting to come back. Our healthcare system is running in Queensland. We have no disruption to continuity of care because of anyone who has travelled interstate and is unable to get back at the moment. So, we ask for their patience, as we've said. Every hospital is making sure that they've got continuity of care in relation to any staff, whether they're on leave, because whether they're interstate on leave or whether they're taking leave here, staff take leave. We don't have 100% of our workforce at hospitals at any given time. So we manage that leave as we always have.
Right. So I would like to introduce Queenslanders today to our new Chief Health Officer. So if Dr Crispin Hajkovic could just come in. And thank you, Doctor. So look, for over 600 days, Dr Young has stood by Queenslanders' side as we've battled this pandemic, and of course next month Dr Young will take up the Distinguished High Office of Governor of this state. There has been an extensive recruitment process, and I'm very pleased to announce that Dr Crispin Hajkovic will take on that role from the 1st of November. So Dr Hajkovic is the Director of the Infectious Disease Unit at the Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital. He has managed pandemics and has more than a decade been involved in the management of that, including the 2009 flu pandemic, Ebola, and do I pronounce it Zika? Zika, yep. And he has worked in Brisbane, Rockhampton and Gympie, as well as interstate as well. He is also the Associate Professor at the University of Queensland Centre for Clinical Research and has an extensive record in research and has published more than 27 times in medical journals. So I just wanted to make sure that Queensland got to see the new face of our Chief Medical Officer taking on that role from next month, and I'm quite sure that everyone will be wishing Dr Young all the best in her role. But I might just ask Dr Young, do you want to say a few words to introduce Dr Hajkovic and then say a few words? Thanks. Thanks.
I'm delighted that Dr Hajkovic will be taking on the role of Chief Health Officer from the 1st of November. He is the perfect person to take on the role at this point in the pandemic because he has been our lead, and I've been going to him for the last 2 years for advice. He has been the lead in the treatment and management of COVID cases. And it is no accident that Queensland has only had 7 deaths out of our 2,048 cases so far. Every single one of those deaths I regretted, and we all regretted, but at least it wasn't more, and that was due to the work that he's done and led across our state. So I've had him involved in our network. As you know, we have 5 COVID hospitals networked in Queensland, and he's been the lead in working through with those hospitals and with our clinical protocols. And I know he's been keeping right on top of the new treatments that are available going forward, and that is what we will need going forward. So we're coming out of the phase of the pandemic, which was all about stopping the virus coming into Queensland, and Queenslanders have done a fantastic job doing that. But now we're getting to the point where we won't be able to maintain that. The virus will come in no matter what we do, so we need to have our health system prepared, which it's been doing now for over 18 months, and we need to have the systems in place. This is another disease that needs to be managed. And once we've got enough people vaccinated, we really and truly need to offer every single Queenslander the opportunity to be vaccinated if they're 12 years of age or older. Then we know we can manage this and manage it very well, particularly with someone like Dr Hajkovic in charge and managing that going forward. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr Hajkovic.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Dr Young. Thank you, Premier and Minister. My name's Crispin Hajkovic. I'm a clinical infectious diseases specialist. I've worked at Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital on the front line of the COVID response for the last 18 months, managing patients in hospital, in ICU, vaccinating and so forth. So I've got a very good personal experience with this virus. I'm thrilled and honoured to become the next Chief Health Officer of Queensland. There's a big problem, which is it's going to be very hard to follow in the footsteps of Dr Young, who is brilliant, outstanding, and has the respect of all of the doctors, all of the nurses looking after COVID in the state. I'm honoured to be joining this team, and I think the results that Queensland has achieved in the pandemic to date speak for themselves. And I'm really honoured to serve the people of Queensland. Look at what we've achieved, and it's because of people getting tested, getting vaccinated, following the QR codes, doing all of that sort of thing. And the people of Queensland are really the main reason we are in such a good state at the moment. However, things will change with the pandemic. We have an opportunity here. We have an opportunity to get our vaccination rates up, so please get vaccinated. Do it today. Prioritise it over other things you need to today. If you can't do it today, make a booking online, do it this week. It takes time to get protection from vaccination, and we need to get on with it right now. I will be becoming the Chief Health Officer on the 1st of November. We still have a fantastic Chief Health Officer in the meantime in Dr Young, and I'm very grateful for your kind words and for the opportunity today. Thank you. And take some questions.
Why did you want the job?
Look, I've been involved in pandemics for a long time now. This will be my 4th big pandemic. It's a unique moment in history. This is by far the worst pandemic we've had. I have some really good ideas. I have a lot of knowledge about the virus. I'm a technical knowledge, infectious diseases vision, and I think that's the right time to have a clinical lead coming into the pandemic at this moment, where we're going to have a shift and we're going to be treating cases in hospital.
Dr Young, I guess Queensland has been very used to Dr Young's approach to COVID. Can we expect any different approaches from you, or is it going to be very much in the same path?
Oh, look, Dr Young has done a superb job. She's an outstanding communicator and has a deep knowledge of the transmission of the virus and so forth. I'm not Dr Young, I'm different. I come from a clinical background, but I'd be really happy to achieve what Dr Young's achieved, if you like. I'm not the CHO yet, so I'm looking forward to asking those very valid questions, but I'm not the CHO yet, and I'll look forward to answering them when I do become the CHO. Yeah. Look, our hospitals are fantastic, and it's because of the fantastic people in our hospitals, the doctors, the nurses, the physios, the pharmacists, the allied health and the wardies. We have great people. I'm really confident about that. Now, COVID has tested hospital systems around the world, and it'll test our system as well, but we have fantastic people, and I'm confident that our hospitals will cope.
Do you think it's ready for the hospital system?
I think our hospital system is looking great. I think our hospital system has heaps of people ready to go. I think it'll still be a big challenge though, yes.
What's your opinion on 18, 19-year-olds receiving AstraZeneca?
I'd follow the advice of ATAGI. I think Dr Young has always followed the advice of ATAGI, and that would be my position on vaccination. ATAGI is a group of experts. Many of my colleagues are on ATAGI, and I think they make great recommendations which we'll be following.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks very much.
We've got a cabinet meeting now. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll come out this way.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there you are, the new Chief Medical Officer, Chief Health Officer for Queensland being announced, and we will see he seems very nice, and of course, as he mentioned himself, that it will be big shoes to fill in coming in after Dr. Janet Yang. Well, right now it's time to take a look at our sponsors' message.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is there. Well, and don't forget that tomorrow or every Wednesday we have the real estate update with Usha Chandra right here on this channel. Well, ladies and gentlemen, wonderful to have your company once again today on this 5th day of October. Yes, 5th day already. And of course, that big news this morning of the outage of the internet, I mean not the internet, the Facebook, Messenger and WhatsApp. And so it's been one of the huge outages after a long time. Well, right now it's time to go to India with our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India report that brings you glimpses of the changing India and the growing engagement of the Indian diaspora with India. In our first story, Indian Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal tells the Indian diaspora in the UAE that now is the best time to invest in fast-growing Indian economy. Indian Minister of Commerce and Industry, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution and Textiles, Piyush Goyal pitched to the Indian diaspora to invest in India unhesitatingly. Addressing the Indian People's Forum Business Conclave in Dubai, Goyal said now was the first time for India's vast expatriate community to invest in their motherland, as there is a great opportunity for extraordinary growth in India. Goyal is in the UAE to inaugurate the Indian Pavilion at Dubai Expo. The official visit is being seen as a major step towards boosting Indo-UAE strategic partnership and taking trade and investment to unprecedented levels. The ongoing expo is India's window to the world, an opportunity to showcase India's capability and potential. Goyal underlined that the 3.4 million strong Indian diaspora in the UAE acts as a bridge between the two countries. He said under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, India is seeing a rise in economic indicators despite the pandemic. The Indian ministry informed that the UAE government has committed to invest $75 billion sovereign funds in India, and the two partners have a shared vision for clean energy as they are working together to start manufacturing equipment for solar power. Later in the day, at the 9th meeting of a joint task force on investments, the two nations discussed exploring mutually beneficial methods and incentives to facilitate further investment from UAE sovereign investment entities in key priority sectors in India. Indian Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla begins a strategic visit to Sri Lanka as the two countries mount the biggest joint military exercise in the subcontinent. Indian Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla began his 4-day visit to Sri Lanka by praying at the Sri Dalada Maligawa temple in Kandy, the capital of the central province. Shringla, accompanied by a 3-member delegation, was received by Indian High Commissioner Gopal Bagle and senior officials from the Sri Lankan Foreign Ministry. According to the Sri Lankan Foreign Ministry, Foreign Secretary Shringla will call on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and Foreign Minister G.L. Pires. He will also visit Kandy, Trincomalee and Jaffna during his 4-day stay. His visit comes as the Indian Army's Mitra Shakti contingent was received with ceremonial honour by the Sri Lanka Army at Matala Rajapaksa International Airport. The two forces will engage in the largest friendly joint military exercises in the subcontinent. This is the 8th edition of the India-Sri Lanka bilateral joint exercise Mitra Shakti at the Combat Training School, Ampara in Sri Lanka, to be held from October 4th to 15th. The exercises will involve tactical level operations in an international counter-insurgency and counter-terrorism environment. Shringla's October 2nd to 5th visit is at the invitation of the Sri Lankan Foreign Secretary Admiral Professor Jayannath Columbage. The visit will contribute towards consolidating the long-standing multifaceted relations and enhance bilateral partnerships between two countries, the Sri Lankan Foreign Ministry statement said. This is Shringla's first visit to Sri Lanka since the assumption of office as the Foreign Secretary of India. The visit also comes 2 days after India's Adani Group sealed a deal to develop and run the strategic Western Container Terminal at Colombo Port. The Adani Group will have a 51% stake in the port's Western Container Terminal, becoming the first ever Indian port. UK nationals arriving in India will now have to undergo a mandatory 10-day quarantine. In a tit-for-tat response, India has imposed a mandatory 10-day quarantine on visitors arriving from the United Kingdom. UK visitors will be quarantined even if they are fully vaccinated against the coronavirus disease. This does not apply to Indian nationals flying in from UK. But UK nationals arriving in India will have to quarantine at home or at their destination address. Additionally, UK citizens also need to undergo an RT-PCR test 72 hours before their flight, a second RT-PCR test on arrival in India and a third on the 8th day of arrival. At present, they were required to take a test before departure and on arrival and to quarantine for 7 days. The government has directed states and union territories to strictly enforce the new arrival rules. The Indian decision stems from new rules announced by the Boris Johnson government, under which Indian nationals travelling to the UK will have to undergo mandatory quarantine for 10 days even if they are fully vaccinated against the viral illness. This was because of the Johnson administration's failure to recognise Covishield, the British version of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine, despite recognising 4 other jabs, including another one from AstraZeneca. Though the shot was later included by the UK on its list of approved vaccines, the process for accepting India's vaccine certification is likely to take more time. Responding to New Delhi's move, the British High Commission said that their government is continuing to engage with their Indian counterparts to resolve the impasse. 8 persons were killed in farmers' protest in Uttar Pradesh during the visit of 2 union ministers. At least 8 people were killed in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh's Lakhimpur Kheri on October 3rd as violence broke out during a farmers' protest against the state's Deputy Chief Minister Keshav Prasad Maurya and Union Minister Ajay Kumar Mishra's visit. The violence flared up when 2 SUVs allegedly ploughed into a group of protesters demonstrating against Maurya's visit. According to the farmers' organization, the deceased farmers belong to towns and villages in the state's Baharaich and Kheri districts. Farmers allege that the car involved in the incident was part of Union Minister Ajay Mishra's convoy and was being driven by his son. However, there is no confirmation by the police. 4 supporters of Minister Mishra, including his driver, were lynched by protesting farmers. Internet services in Lakhimpur have been stopped by the telecom companies on the instructions of the district authorities. Heavy police deployment and barricading around the Lakhimpur Kheri district have brought life to a standstill as people, including the locals, are not being allowed to visit the area where violence claimed at least 8 lives. Meanwhile, Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, who was placed under house arrest by Lucknow police, defied the order and left for Lakhimpur Kheri. She was detained in her gaon on October 4th. Bollywood Badshah Shah Rukh Khan's son Aryan Khan and 3 others have been arrested in a drugs raid aboard a luxury cruise liner in Mumbai. Aryan Khan, the son of Bollywood Badshah Shah Rukh Khan, was arrested along with others by the Narcotics Control Bureau on charges of consumption, sale and purchase of narcotic drugs after a rave party was busted aboard a luxury cruise liner. The action came after the NCB swoop aboard the Cordelia Cruises deluxe ship as it was preparing for a scheduled Mumbai-Goa voyage, shocking the people, especially in the entertainment industry. Aryan, the eldest son of Shah Rukh and Gauri Khan, was arrested for alleged possession and consumption of illegal drugs. 5 others, Nupur Sarika, Ismeet Singh, Mohak Jaswal, Vikrant Chokar and Gomit Chopra, were also detained for questioning after October 2nd night mid-sea operation by NCB officials on board Cordelia Cruise on its way to Goa. The Bureau registered a case under relevant sections of the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act after officers seized 13 grams of cocaine, 21 grams of charas, 22 pills of MDMA, 5 gram mephedrone and cash worth 133,000 at International Cruise Terminal, Green Gate, Mumbai. It was also revealed that drugs were covered from between women's sanitary pads and medicine boxes during the raid at the rave party. The Drug Control Agency sources said a fortnight back they got a tip-off about a party to be organized by a private lifestyle and fashion channel on the cruise to which many VIPs were invited. Following this, 22 NCB officials boarded the ship as guests. Over 1,800 guests were believed to be on board the ship, and NCB officials are also likely to call the organizer of the party for questioning. Trailer of the multilingual South Indian film Manadu is out. Famous star Simbu's political time loop thriller packs a punch.
Your time starts again.
Famous Tamil star Silambarasan Tesingu Rajender, also known as Simbu, is thrilled about his upcoming film Manadu, directed by Venkat Prabhu. Fans were delighted and stormed the internet on October 2nd as the trailer of Manadu was dropped online. As seen in the trailer, Manadu is a political thriller that explores the time loop concept where 1 or 2 characters get stuck in a day and the events repeat till they crack it. Simbu underwent a drastic physical transformation during the lockdown in 2020 and shed several kilos to lead a healthy life. He then signed back-to-back films and is confident of releasing them in theatres. He recently wrapped up the shooting of Manadu. Director A.R. Murugadoss, Nivin Pauly, Nani and Rakshit Shetty released the film's trailer in Tamil, Malayalam, Telugu and Kannada. While the film is titled Manadu in Tamil and Malayalam, it is called The Loop in Telugu and Kannada. That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report. Thank you for watching.
And thank you very much, Ankita, for that report. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you today. But before we leave, I'd like to leave you with the functions and events taking place this weekend.